now head over to Egypt, where President Ramaphosa is delivering a media briefing around the climate change talks.
A good experience. We are encouraged by the call that was made by His Excellency President of Egypt, President Al-Sisi, that we need more action and more ambition in implementing all the climate action commitments. We also agree with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, that we can no longer afford any further delays in mitigating the effect of climate change. African countries are losing between 3 to 5% of their GDP due to the effects of climate change. There is consensus from across the board that just transitions must be just, and they must also be inclusive, which is particularly important for developing economic countries, which are the worst affected by climate change. Now, although Africa itself carries the least responsibility for climate change, the continent experiences much of its harshest effects, and this reality is not disputed. There is agreement that for transitions to be just, vulnerable workers and vulnerable communities need to be included in designing just solutions. The South African Cabinet recently endorsed our National Just Energy Transition Investment Plan as a basis for our pathway towards a low-carbon, climate-resilient society. And according to the plan, South Africa will need approximately $98 billion to correct an error that I made, not 98 trillion, but $98 billion over the next 5 years to enable a just transition and achieve the ambitious targets we set out in our nationally determined contribution. The plan includes a portfolio of investments across 3 priority sectors that have been identified, and they being the electricity sector, as well as the green hydrogen sector, which is a new sector for us, and the new energy vehicles sector, which is also a new sector. Now, the financing mechanisms, both from public finance institutions and commercial institutions, need to provide good concessional loans and be upweighted towards grants or non-debt instruments. And we have already communicated the structuring of the offer that they made to us at Glasgow to restructure our investment plan. It requires much more money to be properly and fully implemented. And we therefore call for the reform of the multilateral development banks, as well as international financing institutions, and the mobilization of commercial banks to meet the climate financing needs that we have already identified and that many countries have already identified. At COP26 in Glasgow last year, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the United States, and the European Union offered support in the form of, as I said, the Just Energy Transition Partnership. It is our hope that this partnership will offer groundbreaking processes for funding by developed countries for the ambitious but necessary mitigation and adaptation goals of developing countries. Now, whilst we've been here, we've been holding a number of bilateral meetings aimed at consolidating common views on climate action, on just transitions, as well as on funding processes. So our meetings have been really beneficial, and we believe that it is only with substantial support that Africa can build the resilience that it is required to build to protect itself and safeguard our economies. It is only with significant additional funding that we can ensure that future generations of South Africans, and indeed Africa at large, live in an environment that is clean, conducive to health and well-being, and that has not been destroyed because of the inaction of today's leaders. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We'll now open the floor to questions. Please introduce yourself and fire away. Any hands? There's a hand over there. Oh, there's a microphone just behind you.
Sorry, Darren Graham from BBC News. The deal last year from Glasgow was seen as an example of how rich countries can help developing ones, and many developed nations used it as an example. What's your take on that, and how much of the offer was a grant, how much was loans, and how much is other climate finance?
Mr. President?
The deal that was struck at COP26 in Glasgow was quite historic in the sense that following the very